My dad married my ex after my divorce. She scammed him. Now he's bankrupt and wants me to save him. I'm a 29-year-old man, and if someone had told me a year ago that my own father would marry my ex-wife, I'd have laughed in their face. Turns out life can be stranger than anything you'd imagine. Let me rewind to where this all began. I met my ex, now father's wife, about 5 years back. She seemed driven, confident, someone with big dreams. We got married after a whirlwind courtship. But from the start, cracks began to show. She had a knack for charming people with sweet words, while privately demanding money for questionable investments. I found myself footing bills for random projects that never materialized. At first, I thought it was just newlywed chaos. But soon, her manipulations escalated, culminating in hidden credit card debts and constant fights about finances. We divorced after 3 tumultuous years. I parted with heartbreak, a chunk of my savings lost, and an uneasy sense that she'd used me for a stepping stone. Shortly after, my father, over the phone, tried consoling me, telling me I'd find better days. I suspected he disapproved of her from the start. Imagine my shock, then, when months later I heard from a cousin that my father was getting very close to my ex. At first, I laughed off the rumor, calling it impossible. My father's in his early 50s, fairly stable financially. My ex is in her late 20s. The idea seemed absurd. Then, one day, I stumbled on them together at a local cafe, leaning in close. They both looked startled to see me, quickly parting. My father, flustered, introduced me to her as if we were strangers. My mind reeled. That night, I confronted him. He insisted they were just two lonely souls bonding over heartbreak. The betrayal stung. Even if they claimed no wrongdoing, it felt like a massive breach of trust. My father repeated that he was an adult free to date, that I should respect his choices. My ex, for her part, casually told me it was none of my business. Furious, I retreated from the situation, hoping it was a short-lived fling. My father rarely listened to me anyway, so I avoided them both, trying to move on with my life. But a mere few months later, I got an invite for a small, intimate wedding, naming father and my ex as a happy couple. My stomach twisted. The nerve. I called father, half laughing in disbelief, asking if this was some sick joke. He insisted it was real, that he and my ex found true love. He actually expected me to attend. My ex texted me, writing, "We hope you can be happy for us." I felt physically ill reading that. My father's fiancée was my ex-wife, who drained my finances and left me battered emotionally. Now they wanted my blessing. No. My father ranted that family is forever, that I'd be childish if I didn't attend. I refused. They married anyway in a small ceremony, with father's friends present. I stayed far away, numb at how swiftly they'd tie the knot. My father posted photos on social media, him beaming in a new suit, my ex wearing a glittering wedding gown. Comments poured in, unusual match, but if they're happy, who are we to judge? I scrolled, stunned at how they flaunted it. My father in his 50s, my ex in her late 20s, both ignoring the weirdness of her having been married to me a year prior. Some folks whispered gossip, but father seemed oblivious or didn't care. I assumed the fiasco might blow over, but my father was so smitten, he bragged about how my ex was a born entrepreneur, praising her financial savvy. I bit my tongue, recalling how she'd run me into debt with her illusions. Yet father insisted she guided him in new investments, claiming they were expanding wealth. I remained skeptical, but father was an adult. He could handle his finances. Or so I thought. Months slipped by. My father and I were barely on speaking terms. My ex apparently moved into his house, redecorating it with lavish furniture. She posted pictures on her social media, boasting about our new life. The house looked almost unrecognizable, stuffed with pricey decor. I'd see glimpses of brand new electronics, fancy art pieces, stuff my father never used to buy. A red flag flickered in my mind, reminiscent of how she'd once talked me into big purchases I couldn't afford. But I kept my distance, telling myself it was his problem now. One day, out of nowhere, father called me, sounding stressed. He said he needed to meet in person, that it was urgent. Sighing, I agreed. We arranged at a neutral coffee shop. I found him looking haggard, bags under his eyes, shirt rumpled. As soon as we sat, he admitted he was in trouble. My father, who once scolded me for letting my ex manipulate me financially, now confessed that she convinced him to invest large sums in some shady luxury goods trade. He poured tens of thousands, possibly more, into her schemes. Now it vanished. No returns, no explanation. She told him it was stuck, or that paperwork is delayed, but father was suspecting something sinister. I asked how it got so bad. He mumbled about how my ex assured him they'd double their investment, that she had connections. She'd also coaxed him into letting her manage his retirement funds. My father sank deeper into her illusions, ignoring the red flags because he was in love. Now the accounts were drained, and father faced potential foreclosure on the house if certain loans weren't paid off. He said she kept stalling him, brushing off questions about the money. My father realized he might be heading for bankruptcy. That was the reason for our meeting. He wanted me to bail him out. I stared at him, stunned by the irony. He'd chosen to marry my ex, ignoring warnings, and now, just as she'd done with me, she drained his finances. My father pleaded with me to help him. He said, "You're my son. I know you have some savings." He lamented that he wanted to keep the house. Anger swelled in me. He never once apologized for marrying my ex, never acknowledged how it impacted me. He just jumped to, "Please rescue me." I told him bluntly, "She scammed you the same way she scammed me. I warned you she was trouble." He looked ashamed, then quickly pivoted, saying, "This is family. You can't let me lose everything." Even in crisis, he tried emotional blackmail. I said I'd think about it, but deep down, I was leaning to no. I'd seen how father never had my back when my ex racked up debts in my name. I left the cafe with father repeating how time is short. The bank might seize assets soon. My ex didn't attend that meeting. Apparently, she was avoiding father. That alone spoke volumes. A few days later, father frantically called again, claiming the situation was even worse. He discovered more hidden charges on his credit cards, spending sprees on designer clothing, jewelry, some gifts presumably for her friends. The bills soared. She refused to explain. Then father confronted her, and apparently she walked out. He admitted she might be cheating, since she was always gone at odd hours. The same pattern from my marriage, repeating. She told father she needed space, ironically the same line she gave me when she was slipping away. Father, desperate, asked me to come to the house. I found him rummaging through bills, cursing how he let her control his finances. My ex was nowhere to be seen. He revealed that she'd quietly transferred large sums from his retirement accounts to an offshore something, all under the guise of lucrative deals. Now he faced near total ruin. He wanted me to track her down, talk sense into her. I snorted at the request. She wasn't listening to me. She never had, especially after our divorce. But father insisted. He said, "If we can't find her, I'll lose everything." She's got the account info. My father actually expected me to chase her and fix his mess. I pointed out how this was precisely the sort of swindle I'd faced in my marriage. Back then, father blamed me for being naive. Now, ironically, he'd repeated my mistake, but bigger. He apologized, tears in his eyes, admitting he was wrong to not believe me or to see my ex's manipulative side. He begged for a solution, saying he'd do anything to repair our relationship if I'd help. Part of me pitied him. He was my father, after all, but also the man who'd chosen to date my ex and ignore my warnings. Did he truly deserve my rescue? I decided I'd at least try to gather evidence to protect him from total meltdown. My ex's cunning was thorough, but if father reported the suspected fraud, maybe the authorities could intervene. So father filed a police report about the missing funds, though it was complicated since they were legally married. Some might say assets were shared. We also engaged a lawyer friend who specialized in financial disputes, explaining that father never consented to these wild transfers. The lawyer said it might be tricky, but not impossible. We needed proof that my ex acted in bad faith, forging father's signature or misrepresenting. The process began, father shaking with fear. He quietly asked me if I'd cover some immediate debts. I told him, "No, I'm not paying for her spree." He looked crushed, but I'd made up my mind. She cost me enough already. Then, out of nowhere, father discovered she'd actually sold some of his possessions, like a vintage coin collection he prized for years. She'd sold them online, pocketing the cash, presumably to shower money on her next fling. He was devastated. I heard from mother not relevant or so. No mention. Father tried calling my ex, only to find her phone disconnected. She basically vanished. Word spread among father's acquaintances. Some whispered he was scammed by a much younger woman. Embarrassed, father avoided neighbors. Meanwhile, he hounded me, wanting me to help keep the bank from repossessing his house. I held firm, telling him to find a way that didn't involve my money. While father's meltdown brewed, I felt a sliver of satisfaction that maybe he'd realize how wrong he was to side with her. But also felt bittersweet. My own father was now bankrupt, humiliated, reaping the consequences. Then father turned to me with a last-ditch guilt trip. I'm your father. I took care of you growing up. You owe me. The old line of paternal authority. I stared at him, recalling how he never believed me about my ex's manipulative nature, how he married her anyway, ignoring the conflict of interest. I calmly said, "You chose her over your own son's warning. Now you face the outcome. I owe you nothing." He raged, calling me ungrateful. That's when I snapped, detailing how I'd endured her manipulations during our marriage, how father had blamed me for failing to lead her properly. He never apologized for turning a blind eye. Father fell silent, tears forming. Then he whispered, "Please, just help me get out of debt." But I refused. I told him he must accept the consequences of trusting a known scammer. At that point, father realized I wouldn't budge. Furious and desperate, he tried rallying extended family. A cousin texted me, saying father told him I was letting him sink while hoarding my money. The cousin asked if that was true. I explained father had effectively stolen my ex from me, ignoring moral boundaries, then let her bleed him dry. Now he demanded I rescue him financially. The cousin was aghast, seeing father's entitlement. Word spread among relatives. Many reached out in shock, hearing the twisted story. Father married my ex, she scammed him. Father bankrupt, now wanting me to bail him out. It escalated further. Father threatened that if I didn't help, he'd disown me. But ironically, I felt he already disowned me emotionally the moment he married my ex. So I told him, "Disown me if you want. I'm not paying a dime." The final meltdown came when father confronted me at my front door, eyes blazing. He demanded I reconsider, insisted family stands together. I retorted that family loyalty goes both ways. He showed none when he married my ex, ignoring how it hurt me. I told him he reaped what he sowed, that he let greed or lust blind him. He accused me of revenge, which wasn't entirely false. But I reminded him I was just protecting myself from more pain. In the aftermath, father's finances spiraled. The bank eventually seized his house, or at least threatened foreclosure. My ex, nowhere to be found, apparently hopped states, possibly with a new victim. Father ended up renting a small apartment, trying to piece together a living on reduced retirement funds. He's bitter, resentful at how things turned out, occasionally lashing out that I abandoned him. But every time he tries to blame me, I remind him he's the one who disregarded my warnings, married my ex, and lost everything. That was his choice. I heard from a friend that father tried filing a civil suit against my ex, but she vanished. He might never recover the stolen amounts. He tried apologizing to me half-heartedly, but was laced with demands for money. I refused. The final blow came when father realized none of the extended family wanted to bankroll his mistakes either. He's now alone, broke, and apparently on the brink of uprooting to find cheaper living somewhere else. Meanwhile, I found a bit of closure. The karmic irony is that he ended up devoured by the same manipulative woman who devoured me. Some might say I should pity father, help him out. But my perspective, he never showed me empathy when I was drowning in debt during my marriage to her. He took her side at times, claiming I was too controlling. Then he waltzed into a relationship with her, ignoring basic moral lines. The result? She gutted his finances, left him in ruins. Now he begs me for rescue. No. I learned the hard way that enabling entitled behavior only invites more abuse. I won't be the scapegoat again. So that's how it ended. My father married my ex after I divorced her. She scammed him, spent all his money, and left him bankrupt. Now he's flailing, wanting me to bail him out, but I refused. I exposed the entire story to those who asked, letting them see the chain of events. My father might claim I'm a bad son, but I believe I'm just refusing to be a doormat once more. If he's learned anything from this, he hides it well. As for me, I move forward with a certain grim satisfaction that, at least, Justice served her brand of manipulative cunning right back to father's doorstep. That's the final chapter for me. He got what he deserved, and I have no regrets.